Hello, viewers, and welcome to Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And we here at Spotlight always do our very best to bring to you persons who are doing very vibrant things to transform our Kenyan society and our world, specifically in the direction of light. And this country has wonderful thinkers who over time have committed themselves to shaping policy, to shaping the way things are done in this country, and their voices are very, very important. And it is very true that at one point or other, you've engaged or listened to a thinker who really shaped your perspective and made you see things a different way. And we are glad on this Spotlight edition to have one of those wonderful thinkers, and that is Vincent Kimosop. Now, Vincent Kimosop is the lead consultant at Sovereign Insight. He's also a governance expert and a secretary of the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum. And he's a wonderful gentleman, and we're happy to have him here on Spotlight again. Vincent?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
It's still new. It's still new.
Well, it's still as long as you can feel that there's a confusion between 2020, as long as when you are writing dates, you can still write 19.
Yes, that's still new.
Until that fades away,
Yes,
it's still new. Yeah. So
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody. Spotlight. And all the best in 2020.
Thank you. You too.
May you shine the spotlight in 2020.
And we are shining it on you on this edition. And viewers, you are always welcome to be part of this conversation. Text us on 22232. That's our text message line. Also, engage us on Twitter and Facebook as we talk about the state of the nation. Vincent.
Yes, sir.
You know, you make the nation your business in so many different ways.
Sure.
And that's quite a feat, you know. And just to pick your spirit, there are so many things you can focus on. You can focus on your own personal enterprise. You can focus on being part of an institution, which you have been part of institutions. But now you focus your mind and your skill and your spirit on bettering this nation as a thinker, right? I mean, how did you decide to take on the nation? You know?
First of all, I think it is good to appreciate one thing, that when you read the book of Acts, it says it is God who purposed and placed people in nations. And it is in him we live, move, and have our being. There's a gentleman called Solomon. He was a king. He is the only one who was allowed to experiment. He experimented, married, you know the number of women, 700 and then 300. All the wealth, he had everything. And he says that he came to a conclusion that the whole duty of man is to fear God and to obey his commandments. The point is, he's a call of God in every person. And you know, at times there are things we learn even from the world. If you read the book of 2 Peter, chapter number 1, from verses 5 to 10, this is what it says. It says, therefore, add to your faith. And then it lists things that we are supposed to add to our faith. Among them is brotherly kindness. Among them is knowledge. I think there are many other things.
Virtue.
Yeah, but the brotherly kindness, and then it says love. And then if you look at 8, it says, if you possess these qualities in increasing measure. So if you possess knowledge in increasing measure, love in increasing measure, 8 to 10 says that they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. Meaning that it is possible to be in the faith and to be ineffective and unproductive. My brother, since the spotlight is on this side, one of the things is that we have to, this faith that we have has to be productive, has to be effective. My area of call is at the national level. And specifically is to help in building good people and good institutions to transform and form there is a lot of talk in town about we need transformative leaders. Since we are in Hope, where we listen and we also look and live, what we listen to is it says faith comes by the word and by the hearing of the word. So when we have faith, we are now ambassadors of Christ who are meant to say, you see, our Lord's Prayer, that says, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. There is a place that says, your kingdom. There is a pattern of Kenya in heaven. So we who are partners with God, who are ambassadors with God, ought to walk with him to actually ensure that that is put in place. Just as, because you've look at Paul, a very strong advocate of the High Court, because he was a lawyer, who has knowledge as a Pharisee, now combined with the Spirit of God, 13 books that you have. So there is power in knowing your God by faith, but also being knowledgeable about your faith and using that knowledge to actually now form and establish systems and patterns that actually contribute towards one thing that is at the heart of God, which is righteousness and justice in society. When you read the good book, it says when justice is exalted, when righteousness is exalted, there is a great elation. Currently in our city, because you're not talking about the state of the nation, if you even look at today's dailies, you realize that you saw what happened in Kasarani. People were demonstrating about bad roads. Do you know the reason? It is because of we have not exalted just and righteous leadership in the city. So when there is when we don't have righteous leadership, what happens? People are going to murmur. The righteous go to hiding. So when we appreciate that and we have the technical ability and the knowledge, then we have the responsibility to now participate in the formation and the establishment of a country that will benefit the most.
You know, it's a very interesting insight there that we move from transformation to
formation. Yes.
And then you mentioned Kasarani and the demonstrations there, and people are demonstrating for
better roads.
You know,
yes.
And when you hear demonstration and you hear that there are some people who are demonstrating and suffered some even death, we would want to ask right now, you know, because the state of the nation, it's important to read the mood, because when athletes, for instance, break records, you can be able to, you know, read the mood of the nation. It's the conversation, you know, and Kenya seems to be at a high
excited,
place. But now we seem to have what has been described as an angry president, a betrayed deputy president, and a burdened citizenry.
Yes. And
from your view, just give us insights about this, the mood of the nation right now.
I think one of the major challenges let me start with the church, because we are in that platform. The prophetic voice of the church to the nation is not, as in, what is it? If they are speaking, let me identify myself. If we are speaking, our voice is not being heard, and we are not. You do not seem to hear the prophetic voice to the nation, and it is good to say this, that we need to arise and shine and speak to the land. Let me start there. Then when you talk about the state of the nation, as an economist, I would say that the economy is not doing well.
Okay. Just before you go to the economy,
yes,
because I think I know these are very, very intense themes. Let's start with, it's interesting that when you talk about the mood of the nation, Vincent, you go right into the church, as if to say that the church must take responsibility for the state of the nation.
You see, my brother, when you look at, we need, when you look at God is a God of order, as in there is order. So when you want to put everything in place, there was a time there was a discussion on the state of the nation in Israel in the times that you had David as the king, where he had missed the mark. And a prophet Nathan who goes to address the state of the nation. And he actually speaks, and what happens? You actually see the king saying, I'm wrong, and the repercussion follows it. If we had to correct this country, the first thing we have to do is that we have to speak to the prophetic voice to take its rightful position. And to say and to declare the holy things holy, and to declare the righteous things right. That for me is the first place. The number two is that because the advantage of the prophetic voice is that you are an amplifier. You are representing the order of God, justice and righteousness. If you speak and they don't obey, what happens? You have discharged your responsibility. Now, then number two, now we will go to the holding people responsible, telling them, we told you the following. You have not done this. Because you can be, look, how do you explain people are coming to demonstrate in Kasarani and they're saying we have bad roads? And truly, they're saying we have bad roads, we are paying taxes. And in the process, somebody dies. As in, that should not be, life is sacred. It should not be the case.
And from your point of view, Vincent, again, staying with the church, because it seems that for years, the church seems to have a ready space for it to operate, but at this particular, and of course there are times when we have romanticized and said, oh, remember the days of Reverend Joya, who would be right in the midst of such demonstrations with his garb. Remember Bishop Alexander Muke,
I'm not referring to that.
There are those seasons, and people usually quickly fall back to that time. Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward. Because you mentioned that the first thing you said when I asked the mood of the nation was the church, right? And I think you're coming from somewhere. And I want to ask you, in the present state of things, why would you say the church seems to underperform in the public space?
I will use a live example, because at times we need to be practical. Let's look currently.
I think all the time.
Look, currently we have the biggest conversation the country is engaged in currently is the BBI conversation. So let me use that as an example, the BBI conversation. Now, if you listen to the statement that was released, the initial statement about BBI, it was about it's a journey towards reconciling the country. As a minister of the gospel, the ministry of reconciliation is actually first vested with the body of Christ. I am trained as a diplomat. There are two types of diplomacy. There is track one diplomacy and track two diplomacy. Track one diplomacy is usually between states, government, Kenyan government and another government. Their conversation is usually just about interest. What is your interest? Like you look at the fight against terror, Americans and Kenyans are on the same page because the interest is to defeat terror. But track two diplomacy is the diplomacy that is engaged in bringing reconciliation, harmony, and healing among a people. That one is best led by actually faith-based conversation and people who have the Spirit of God. Now, so look at the BBI conversation. It is saying 9 things. One of them is to reconcile the country. When we had a problem in 2007, 2017, we prayed. And an opportunity has come in at the moment. And the opportunity that has come in at the moment is that the president has said we need to do what? To reconcile the country. The volume and where you're hearing more discussion is on the political conversation, sharing positions for 2022. But the spirit of BBI, which was reconciliation, is actually, you can no longer hear it. So for me, if I was actually advising and speaking, the prophetic voice at this moment is that the spirit of BBI, we are losing it. So the person who is supposed to articulate and to say, hey people, stay on course. We have no problem. We are not running for political position. The Cyruses and the Dariuses, those are your positions. We are not interested in them. And then when it comes to the election in 2022, we will vote at that time. But at the moment, What we're interested in is reconciling the country. We've talked about transformational leadership. Transformational leadership at times is exalted, but we need to talk about transformation all the way to the formation. I worked as an anti-corruption officer at Transparency International. At the moment, Kenya has picked, there is no any other reform legally and policy-wise and institutionally that will add to our fight against corruption. Are we seeing more corruption? Yes. Because the problem is about the hearts, the cultures, and the attitudes of the people. Now, who is meant to prepare people? Who is meant to prepare values? Who is meant to prepare attitudes? Who is meant to confront cultures where we've exalted and promoted greed? That is a responsibility for me of the church. And that is why I'm saying, at the moment, if, and I'm happy, I'm actually supporting this process and giving my advice. We're even meeting this week to help prepare a position for the church in terms of a technical position. But that is, for me as a technical person, what we are supposed to guard is the spirit of reconciliation. Otherwise, do you know what's going to happen? The politicians are going to run with the BBI conversation for the purposes of their political positioning. What is going to happen? The golden opportunity, the time we've invested in prayer that, oh Lord, heal and reconcile this country, we are going to miss the opportunity.
When you speak about that, and now that you started out with just a whole list of scriptures,
yes,
it reminds me of Jesus Christ looking down at the city of Jerusalem,
yes,
and saying, "Oh, if you knew the time of the visitation."
Now
right?
that is the that is the kind of yes,
and maybe Vincent, without bashing the pastors and the church, which is easy to do.
I've not sounded.
No, it's a critique. It's a very good.
Oh,
we are taking it forward.
Yeah.
Without bashing and blaming the church, which is easy to do. Maybe, just maybe, Vincent, that the leaders want to do something.
Yeah.
Even the pastors, church leaders who are watching this program are already awakened. They want to do something about the BBI, for instance. And beyond a statement, because it's easy for an organization EAK to release a statement, SK to get a statement, even KCPF can release a statement.
Yes.
Beyond the statements, and think about Jesus walking walking the lands of Palestine, and doing real practical things. How does the role of the church, because the BBI is still going on, right? So there's still opportunities. It's still actually gaining traction. So there's still an opportunity for the church to come in its full mode action, right?
Yeah.
So practically, can you advise a pastor who is watching this program? What can they do?
I'm happy. Thanks for capturing that, and thanks for holding me accountable. And by the way, one of the things that I'm very careful is, even as we speak the truth, we have to speak the truth in love, and we have to do it graciously. I'm not saying that nothing is happening in the church. Please get me right. I'm just giving a practical example of a golden opportunity that we have, that if we actually run with it, we are going to direct the country in the right direction.
Yes.
I've given that example about safeguarding the spirit of reconciliation in the context of BBI. That is a forte that we need to guard, because it is given unto us by the church. It will not be done by the politicians. And that is why I've told you about the fight against corruption. When we say, have new laws, have new policies and institutions, we've seen a situation whereby you've done that to the peak and nothing is changed on the ground. Let me just give an example. If I would say in one of your services, I would recommend to a church leader, because the advantage with the church, my brother, is that we are, even Safaricom envies the church, because we are the only institutions that meets its subscribers on a weekly basis. As in, there is no one who has, just imagine, and they listen, they come. So organizing sessions, for example, to understand the times, becoming like Sons of Isaac, that in the times we're in, this is the time for us to reconciling the country. Then beginning reconciliation also among your own people, because at times it's very easy to say, wale, it's national. As in beginning programs that promote healing and reconciliation among yourselves. I'll tell you this. I come from the Rift Valley. And you remember in 2007, the things that happened in 2007.
We remember very sadly.
And you
Yes.
also remember the things that happened in Naivasha. I want to tell you, what have we done in the past? We have been very good in actually sweeping everything under the carpet. I think the prophetic voice is also pointing out to the nation and saying that we have to deal with TJRC. We have to deal with the Ndungu report, because all you require, and God forbid, is a manipulative politician from Rift Valley and from Central Kenya to actually remind people of the wounds that are yet to be healed.
And you know what?
And that, for me, that's why I'm saying there is no politician who is going to do that, to actually, who can speak to that position, because at times they look at their own interest. You know, in 2017, 2000, you remember there were people who were shot in ODM rallies. Let me tell you, if we cannot have Mutiambai, the commission of IEBC, visiting, for example, the parents of baby Pendo, and going and saying, we did this as a policeman, let me tell you, we haven't started the journey. So our ability to speak boldly and say the truth, that these are things that we have done wrong as a country, we have to confront them. We know them. Today, in our papers, you have schools that have been grabbed. The futures of our children have been grabbed. And we have the so-called private developers, and even at times you have institutions that are meant to be moral institutions participating in those corruption. So what I would want to point out is that as one of the best ways that we have is that we have to be speak the truth and speak it boldly. In fact, the gentleman called Martin Luther King, I like quoting him because he was a Baptist minister, meaning that actually men of the cloth could rise up and provide a moral vision for a society that guides it. He said that what we need at the moment, and this was in the 60s, is that our society requires leaders who are not interested in pursuing or greedy for money, but people who are keen and are desirous of justice. We need leaders who do not love publicity, but who love humanity. So if you speak to that, what is going to happen? The people are going to see who among these ones has demonstrated the consistency and the commitment to actually love justice and to do what? And to love humanity. You know, so that for me is the kind of conversation that is missing on the table.
All right, you know,
the menu that we are being served currently, or the country is being served, is a menu that is not balanced.
You know, I think that you're raising some very important issues.
Appreciate.
And you are saying that in the current state of things,
yes,
the church must think and think in terms of what to say, and also
what to
think in terms of what to do.
Yes.
Staying with the spirit of transformation and formation.
Yes.
And when you mentioned somebody like Martin Luther King Jr.,
yes,
he was known, you know, not just for his speaking, but for his doing,
action,
and for his action, and I think that kind of movement because statements are good, but actions are better.
Yes,
you know,
faith and action. Yes.
And just to say that it's not lost. It's BBI is not past tense. No, reconciliation is not past tense. It's in the present tense.
Yes.
I mean, let's just stay with that, the BBI, because it's a very important discussion.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been said about it, now moving away from the church a little bit, is that this BBI was meant to unite the nation, but now it risks dividing the nation, and that is connected to what you talk about, the spirit.
You know, I don't buy the. I honestly. Okay, you introduced what I do. At times I consult and I help develop strategic plans and political strategies for politicians.
Yeah.
And I do not blame the politicians because they are interested in asking themselves, what is my take in it? And I can tell you, I would understand why their keen interest is on two issues. If you listen to the politicians, they're talking about IEBC. And actually, I don't support the recommendations in BBI on the IEBC. They are also talking about what? broadening the executive, introducing prime minister and 2 deputies, and also the leader of official opposition. Personally, I support those positions in terms of structures. They will help promote inclusion. But I can tell you, the body without the spirit is what? Is dead. So for me, why I'm very keen on elevating the position of we have to safeguard the spirit of reconciliation is because we are the only people who can do that. The politicians are interested in the structure so that if it is this formation, I can put up my lineup. So that they're interested in power. But you know very well that power in itself is not the right thing. It is what you will also do with that power. So the why we have a right place to be able to speak to the process is that we are the people who, when you speak about justice, if we will be divided because of justice, let me tell you, it's a good division, so that we know who is unjust and who is just. Because the current division is a plastic division. It is personality based. We have to elevate the conversation to a principles conversation, so that because if I come and I'm talking about, hey, we have good examples. We have pursued reforms, and we've seen in the anti-corruption, it's not leading us. We need to combine structure and systems together with the spirit, with the culture and the values. If you bring that conversation to the table, it's not going to divide people.
Vincent.
Yeah.
I would want you to tell us.
Yes.
How do we? Because many people, especially in the faith sector or who are people of faith, we keep saying that our values are important. This country will become better when it takes chapter 6 as the central, as a central, place of our constitution. We all need values, but there's always a question. How do we lift up the values from paper, to culture?
I really appreciate. I can hear, as in, how do we move? First, I hope you've gotten me by the importance of pointing out the spirit and the heart of BBI and safeguarding it.
Yes.
I think if you've gotten that, that is the first thing.
And you have also, and you've mentioned also, you've actually identified an institution, for instance, the church, as a custodian of that spirit.
Of those issues.
Yes.
So for me, by telling them that this is something you can only do, and so what happens? The first place is that you acknowledge, hey, this is an important thing that we have to run to. Number 2 is also we have to invest in it. One of the things that I would really want to require is that putting a people together who then looks at this report, who then are moving to implementation and to packaging. Let's look at one of the recommendations that you have in the BBI. I was privileged to chair the technical committee that developed the National Family Promotion and Protection Policy. So one of the ways that we then, we know it is church that marries families, it is church that establishes and actually supports families. Our ability to deepen our family programs, for example, then asking ourselves, what does integrity mean? So we have a conversation of integrity is what you say is what you mean. At times, during this time of admissions of schools, you find that people who have no problem paying for their children to do what? To actually get good secure positions in good schools. So here we are preaching integrity, but we are, in terms of the formation, that is how they actually see it is actually okay to cut shortcuts. Having family days in churches where we focus and reflect on the institution of the family is the part of the practical steps that we can engage in this conversation. Supporting institutions that actually are championing and working closely. You have institutions like ACPF, you have institutions like the National Commission. One of the things that I am concerned at times, you have duplication. In the national executive, the president is responsible for national values. Yet you also have another commission, the National Cohesion Commission, the one that was chaired by the former speaker, Ole Kaparo.
Is that now chaired by Kobia?
Now chaired by Kobia. Yeah. Our ability to actually build synergies and frameworks where we celebrate and promote. When we say who is a person who embodies, when you want to promote values, you have to be deliberate about it. where you now establish a framework to celebrate people who are models of certain values. And that is why people are appointed as ambassadors, goodwill ambassadors, to champion certain things. So for me, one of the things is that we have to develop, first is we have to codify our values. These are our values. So for example, we have 17 national values. For me, I think those are too many values. We need to reduce them into like 5 values that people can remember. So I've just talked about family, for example, as our program. Why don't we even identify ambassadors for and celebrate people who have championed family values, and we have generations over time. Look at the national the award system that the president has at the end of the year, the one that is done at Jamhuri Day. You don't have a standard. And by even telling the president that we want you to be among the things that you award are people who are championing and promoting family values. People who've developed literature, knowledge that is actually supporting and helping. So that is how, for me, we can practically engage and we can model our values in line. I'm happy with our, like we are in a program here supported by a church, Hope TV. So we actually require, for example, Hope to increase the number of programs on radio and on TV discussing and modeling values. So that you become deliberate by saying we will not only talk and articulate, we will also put our money and our resources. It was not, and I'll conclude, look at Nehemiah. He was a cupbearer before the king. Trusted man. You know, the person who brings something before the king. But when he hears that there is a problem in Jerusalem, what does he do? He prays and he acts and comes to actually build the wall, ensure that, establish a proper framework, build the wall, ensure people are settling, remove the bad people, confront opposition, and eventually you have a wall that is established. So we have to be not only concerned about values, but also to develop a program that ensures that. I was talking to the CITAM church leaders, taking them through the BBI report. And one thing I'm very happy, they were all seated, meaning that they were keen and deliberate to understand this report. Then number 2, they said, what can we do? They said, for us, we will be having a family day. Then when you put a value like patriotism, before Jamhuri Day, 12/12, the Sunday before, it becomes the national day. You talk about the nation, you pray about the country, we confront the issues. So it is in our schools, that is how we actually move from speaking to programmatic engagement to celebration. The reason why you have the Sabbath is that it was a day to reflect and to know that our sufficiency comes from God. God is also deliberate in developing his program. Then he gave the Feast of Weeks, all those. It was integration and developing programs in such a way that, you know, I have to work within the week, rest on Sunday. So if God himself is deliberate in developing his programs, and we are his ambassadors, we also have to develop programs that ensures that we actually move from speaking to action.
And I like the fact that with your examples, it actually shows that it is very possible to convert values from just words and from what you can call conversation to become really actionable
practical
things, you know? And I feel that as a nation, we're in a place also where our president is really trying to see how he can, what has been mentioned over time, leave a certain legacy, for this nation. And you can tell that he is running against time. And the question, the idea of Uhuru Kenyatta's, the president, his legacy, it's been a long conversation going on for quite some years now. But at this particular point, we should be seeing exactly what that legacy is about. And I don't want you to speak to that.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this because I feel you are one of the people who is closer to the president. If I was to appear before the president today, this is what I'll tell the president: is that, Your Excellency, you need to come out clearly on what you want. If BBI is actually not BBI, if unity and reconciling this country is your agenda, Your Excellency, the signal comes from the top. If you remember the days we used to tune radios, if the FM and the what is it, the FM and the moving from medium wave to FM, if the frequency does not, if you don't get to the right, then there will be hissing.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why it is you don't feel clarity in terms of what is this thing that the president wants is that he has not been deliberate and articulate, and this is what I want. So for me, that's what I'll tell the president. Number two is that when you have communicated what you want and you actually clarified, is that he has to be on the lead. The law of navigation. He has to be on the lead. So when conversations are happening on the BBI, it should be, I am keen on ensuring that I leave a country that is reconciled. So when people are saying, oh, Your Excellency, is this your strategy towards extending your term? He should be saying, excuse me, I have given my commitment. I'm going to serve you for 2 terms. But one thing I want to leave you is that I don't want, because I have seen the impact of what divisive election does to an economy, does to our people, and does to our businesses. I don't want us to be there. Then what is it that I want? I want us to see how do we achieve this. And again, I feel the president does not have Daniels in his cycles. I think I can say that confidently. The president requires people like Daniel who are able to speak to him and tell him, live forever. You know, like if you read the King, this is what you should do at such a time. Where then you distill the issue and says, hey, if the 2022 discussion, I have no problem. You have freedom of expression, you can campaign. But for now, this is what I want us to do. And then also give the timeline. The BBI conversation needs to be well timed. In the next 2 months, this is what is happening. Because currently you do not know. You're seeing a lot of meetings here and there. Develop a framework. And let me tell you, when the signal is clear, even one of the things I really like about the Bible is it gives us, it says when the signal of the trumpet is not clear, what happens? You do not know. Am I going for war or am I going to hide myself?
Allow me to compare.
Yes.
Earlier on in the beginning of the Jubilee government.
Just allow me to finish the one over, because
it's connected.
And then
it's connected. Just to connect.
Go ahead.
Because in terms of the signal.
Yes.
Earlier on, when the Jubilee government picked up, it was very clear that they had an agenda for young people.
Yes.
It was fund after fund. And as you say, the leadership was on the front line. Every launch of these funds and every youth launch of one kind or rather, the leadership was on the front. And we felt that this is a government that's really, for the empowerment of young people.
Yes.
I remember the launches were grand and very believable, right? And so what we see, just to connect to what you're saying, is that, the president has done this before. He's been on the lead before in a way that worked.
So that's what I'm saying. And one of the reasons, because you are a minister, the prophetic voice in the New Testament does 3 things. It encourages, it comforts, and it strengthens. At times, the discouragements can come to people in power. I have served as a CEO and also chairman. At the top there, it can be very cold. So if you even look at Nathan, when he's coming to confront David, when he had sinned with Bathsheba, he comes with, he's not compromising the truth, but he's respective of authority, firm on the truth, and he achieves the results. You need people at the top who are able to encourage you to do what? To continue on the tangent. Discouragements will come. At times you can put the right programs on economic recovery, they do not work. Leadership requires certain tenacity and ability to celebrate successes and failure. So, and since he's not running again, he is able to say, this is what has worked. Personally, I am fully in support of the BBI conversation, because particularly of reconciling and building a united front. If he says tomorrow morning that even though I had a big 4 agenda, that I wanted to actually manufacturing, housing, that will still continue programmatically, but my current political project that I want to see it to its implementation is a reconciled nation. So, hey guys, if you are interested in 2022, I have no problem. Put your house in order. But before we get to 2022, this is what I want. And you know, the advantage of, you see, if you look at it currently, he has almost a good support from across the spectrum. So in terms of the opportunity to achieve a major project and reconciling the country, this is the opportunity.
All right. When still at it.
And he should finish it in before the end of 2020.
Okay.
Because 2021, the silly season starts kicking in. So for me, I am sending you to the president.
The theme of reconciliation is a happy song to every Kenyan's ears, right? But now right at the top, you know, the conversation has been around the rift, you know, between the president and the deputy president. Now, I want us to focus on the deputy president for a little while. Because one of the things that he has done visibly and publicly is that he has mostly, you know, been to churches, of course, with a lot of conversation around his presence in church and all that. But let's move from his presence in church and go to the place where his presence in church is also an expression of his faith, right? Just stay right there, just stay right there. And in the midst of this apparent rift, how should his faith, his publicly proclaimed faith, you know, inform this present dynamic?
In fact, if the person who should be, the person, because he is a Christian, believing now that he goes to church, who should be running with the reconciliation card should be the deputy president. As in, that is something that the Bible advocates. As in, Christianity is the only faith that tells you to pray for your neighbor. It tells you to love your enemy. It tells you don't take vengeance, leave vengeance to the Lord. So for me, what concerns me either is on the faith dimension is that the incomplete narrative when it comes to the reconciliation on his part. So he has to actually have a sitting with the president and understand, Your Excellency, on the Jubilee Manifesto, we talked about uniting the country. Umoja, because it is on their manifesto. We shook hands.
We
shook hands.
Before you go to the manifesto,
yes.
The
Christian.
There could be another dynamic also, because when they began, you know, their rule or their term, it was my brother. You know, they were calling each other brothers. So I think even the Jubilee Manifesto is too legal. I think there was a dynamic of brotherhood that would also,
and that's what I was saying. It is,
you know, be part of the play.
It is, and that is why when I insisted on the church, you see, remember first they are politicians. When politicians come together, their first conversation is not a fellowship to advance the kingdom of God. At times, it is about to advance their own kingdoms and for them to the pursuit of power. So one of the things we have to, even though they come to church and everything, is our ability to remain true to our first vocation, to tell them when they are going wrong and to affirm them when they are doing right. So it was good for them to uphold brotherhood and everything. But if that brotherhood was based not just on political power, when other political expediencies and exigencies come, what happens? That brotherhood will be challenged, as you currently see. Because also BBI is a political project. And definitely when you bring down the ODM leader clause, as the president has done, it will have political ramification because people are fighting for space. And that is why it is important to articulate the brotherhood, the reconciliation narrative, and to say, Your Excellency, since you're also politicians, all these are advancing their political interests for the sake of the greater good. This project of reconciliation and uniting the country needs to have a timeline. You cannot achieve BBI the way it is currently doing in 2021 and 2022. Because at that time, people are, the political system we have adopted is the one of that has exploited the tribal divisions that we have, unfortunately. So because that is the political reality, as a pragmatic person, you do things when you make hay when the So the sun is going to shine in 2020 alone.
Okay.
I foresee political rain in
Okay.
2021, 2022.
You definitely
Yes.
deep down in your heart, you are an optimist.
No,
You are
of course,
hopeless,
and that's why you can hear the way I'm
a good
speaking.
news person. You know, it's a good
Yes,
news person.
I'm speaking passionately,
Yeah,
so
and
that we can make progress in this.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
You know, time just runs so fast, and
Yes.
before we end this conversation,
Oh,
we always must talk about Wanjiko.
Yes.
Wanjiko is paramount in
Yeah.
every conversation because the spotlight should be on Wanjiko. The state of the economy.
Yeah.
It's very clear now. There was a denial at the beginning, you know, things are and you know, everything is being managed and all that. But now it's really in the open that the economy is openly struggling, right? And I know there are all those measures that have been expressed at a policy level, you know, at those central bank levels and all that, which are important. But I want you to speak to Wanjiko because it seems like hard times. There will be a hard season economically, you know. What should Wanjiko do at a time like this?
You know, Wanjiko is a beneficiary of a working system. So if the system is not working, then what happens is that even irrespective of what the Wanjiko does, you can feed the cow very well, produces milk. There are poor roads to actually transport that milk. Then on top of poor roads, you have what? You have poor prices. And then on top of poor prices, you have cartels that have taken captive of certain sectors. So as we
on top of cartels,
yes,
locusts.
Okay. So the consistency. So it is important that even as we tell Wanjiko to work hard, as we encourage them, as the farmer, as the pastoralist, as the person who is cooking mandazis and the mamambogas and everything, it is important that the system that is established to facilitate some of those things are working. Now, is it possible to have a system that's working? Look at this. Today, you have the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. They actually set up and give indication of prices within the country. So today you're fueling in Total, you're fueling in Shell. The prices are actually comparable. What takes you there is the services and other things. So we require the same thing that happens. Look at agriculture. Agriculture in this country is a transport business. You go to Kinangop, there are hardworking farmers. They are producing cabbages, they are producing carrots, they are producing. But when you really look at the value and the benefit, the person who is benefiting is the person who is doing transport and who is the middleman. So one of the things we have to do is that we acknowledge when there's a problem, that there's a problem with the economy, and the answers that we give are not answers that elevate others over others. I come from the Rift Valley. I'm a farmer, son of a farmer, small-scale farmer. When I hear at times people saying, oh, cereals will be we will add more money, you realize the people who will take advantage really of the cereals the large-scale farmers, the people who are able to transport and do the... So it's not answers that only speak to a select few. We need answers that looks at everybody. Look at the intervention recently, which it was actually a transfer, the one of raising the prices of milk from 17 to 33. So you see, irrespective of who is producing the milk, from the large scale to the small scale farmer, the prices have now gone from 17 to 33. Now, that is an economic intervention. That's actually a transfer where the government is taking the costs and then they're giving the farmers the money. So that money, they use it. So that transfer needs to be supported in such a way that if you're getting now 33, we need to see the other costs of inputs towards the same, and also the stabilization, so that it is not, because it's not the first time we are doing this. If we need sustainable interventions, so that if the milk increases, KCC and other producers are able to convert the excess milk into powder, so that there is stability in the system. I'm just using that example, that it is not a one-off solution. You require a solution that speaks to the entire process. So that when Kera He's fixing a road in the rural areas together with the county governments. That they are linking and facilitating the supply chain so that you reduce the costs that actually eat down the benefits that the farmer gets. Because what is the point of getting 33 shillings for your milk and then to buy an input, the cost of transporting, if it's bran, the inputs for the supporting the farmer actually go up because of bad roads, because we are in a rainy season. So what happens? You're actually keeping that person in a vicious cycle of poverty. The same thing to the sugar farmers. Look at the sugar farmers, those who are producing cans. We need to make our industries competitive. Because every time you're hearing Mumias is being bailed, it is an issue of making the sector competitive and actually increasing the value chain from that can. So so that you're not only selling sugar, the stocks, you also have that farmer benefiting from the byproducts that comes from the same. So it is I will be hesitant to talk about a magic bullet, but I will be firm in insisting of sustainable solutions that actually ensures that our sectors perform to the optimum. You will hear farmers in central Kenya, they will tell you, a long time ago, we used to take our coffee to the cooperatives. We used to be paid by this date. We took our children to school. I was in a rural area in Kirinyaga, and I remember a proud farmer told me that our cooperative movement was working. We would take our coffee, and then from our proceeds of coffee, we agreed we've built that school for our children. As in, you had a system that worked on the ground. Look today. The road from Isiolo all the way to Marsabit is now a tarmac road. So meaning that even if you're to do abattoirs and to get support for our pastoralist farmers, transportation is no longer an issue. So I would say that since we have a cabinet and we have a president, it is the one-off solutions of this transfer will not be sustainable. We need decisions that are long-term in their engagement.
And compound.
Yeah, so that they speak one to another. Okay. And I'll tell you, we look at our young people. I'm happy with the current conversation, even on CBC, where we are talking about retooling our youth so that they are productive and they're able to engage within the economy. Now, that conversation needs to go all the way so that when young people have skills, they link up to tertiary sector, and then from the link up to tertiary sector, the connection to resources. I gave you my testimony that as a consultant today, I'm able to do my work but benefit myself and a few people. If the government had a framework where some of us would be able to transfer our skills to young people to build the next generation of consultants, all I need is space and resources. And I'm able to replicate the skills and energy to young people so that we build the next generation. So it is that flexibility and that partnership between the public and the private sector. Because looking at government alone, we will be fooling ourselves that government alone can fix our problems.
It's the goal again there that the government must keep its focus on Wanjiko. Is critical. That what motivates the government on a day-to-day basis, what drives the imagination of government must be Wanjiko.
Yes.
And where the government is not geared towards Wanjiko, then there is that need for what you earlier told us, the prophetic voice, to just bring sobriety to the system and to bring them back on course. And Vincent, thank you for sharing your thoughtfulness and your insights. And as you take on the nation, great success. Keep at it, because we need thinkers. We need people who challenge, the system and align it so that Wanjiko, becomes the evidence or the exhibit of how a working nation is really supposed to be.
Sure.
Viewers, thank you for watching this edition of Spotlight. And a lot we have said here, and it's very, very clear that this BBI is a great opportunity for reconciliation for this nation. And for the church leaders, remember, this is a great opportunity for the church to show the way. We should not allow the politicians, they have their role, but we should not allow them to lead us. The church also has a great space to lead this process, because even the Bible does give the ministry of reconciliation to you, the church leader, to you, the Christian. And big talk on the structure that would come out of BBI. But let's remember as a nation that structure without spirit will leave us right at the same place. You've been watching Spotlight.